And now, Podtendo presents Final Fantasy IX. In this retrospective, we're going to be doing a deep dive into characters, some of the thematical elements, and just what makes this game so fantastical. Please enjoy. Hey guys, welcome back to Podtendo's Final, the finale of our retrospective, our 4-part retrospective that we've just been chomping at the bit to play. Man, Final Fantasy IX. It's been a good time here on Podtendo Land with your co-host, me, Mick, and I'm joined by
Tyson.
Cool. Awesome. Look at that. So, finally came the conclusion of this video game.
Yeah. I mean, a game that we wanted to get all wrapped up.
Oh!
And I mean, comparing this to, we love Final Fantasy. We're finally at 9, and I mean, looking at you, 10, as we continue our journey through all the Final Fantasy games. Or maybe we go back and touch some of those little retro games. I'm not sure.
I don't know. Yeah, we'll talk about that. I just feel like having a 4-part series on playing Final Fantasy 2 in Japanese or something like that. I know there's fan translations available. Maybe actual translations available. I don't know. We'll see. But I did pull it back a little bit. I seemed restrained. I was like, oh, this game. Guys, we're at the end of this Final Fantasy IX retrospective. We don't have a lot to do today because we kind of chunked it up disc by disc by disc. So if we're playing along, we were trying to be cute. Disc 1, Disc 2. Disc 4, super, super short. So if you go back and listen to any of our episodes 1, they correspond kind of the disc in the game. This game, because it is just short, it's kind of a, are you ready? Buff up your team, get the best weapons, maybe finish those side quests, go beat the end boss. That's all Disc 4 is. We've got a bunch of stuff. We're going to finish some development details. We've got a story recap, so I'm recapping literally the whole story of this world. It's pretty fun. Me and Tyson both watched the video, and I was kind of afterwards, I was like, oh, I get this game. Makes sense. Okay. The story's kind of weird, but I definitely didn't get it from just playing through the game. You need some extra clues. As well as we're going to be, I think, talking about all the characters finally, and that's the end of that one. So pretty excited. If you ever were to just wanting to listen to some guys tell you the story of Final Fantasy IX, that's kind of this podcast. So maybe on a re listen, you just listen to this part and you're happy in 30 minutes. And you're like, oh, someone just told me the story of Final Fantasy IX. That's great.
Yeah, and it's a fun story. Definitely not what I got out of it as a kid. This playthrough, I definitely picked up a lot of those things, but sometimes having somebody lay it out for you, you're like, oh, I get it. There's a lot of things going on here that seem like just dropped plot points, and no, it actually makes sense. There's a reason for this.
Yeah. So we'll get through that a little bit. Although I do feel like I screwed up which planet is which. I think I get Gaia and Terra, these 2 planets. I screw that up, so good thing no one responds to our podcast, so tell me how many errors I make, because there's a lot of them. Final Fantasy IX, guys, it was developed by Square, sold 5.83 million copies, was released July 7th, 2000. How Long to Beat has this game at 38.5 hours. On eBay, a copy of this game costs you $66. On eShop, you can get this game for about $28 for the digital. You can play it on your PS1, your Android, your iOS, your Windows, your PS4, your Nintendo Switch, and Xbox One. So, available all sorts of places. Good stuff.
Yeah. Put on a wish list, pick it up, find yourself an original copy, because I feel like there's definitely lots of these games around.
It didn't sell as well, right? Final Fantasy 10 or 7 hit 10 million or something like that. 8 was closer to 8 million. So this one being at 5.8, so closer to 6. It just saw it continue. Now, this also was released after the PS2 was on the market. So there was just a point of people why would I go back to the PS1? I just spent $2,500 on the Blu-ray playing PS2. And nothing, I can't play this old game on my PS2.
PS2s didn't play Blu-rays. That's PS3s.
Was it just a DVD player that people were losing their shit over?
Yeah, because DVD players were $200 at that point.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, a simple basic DVD.
So I knew something. So I knew.
And
yeah.
The PS2 was $250.
Okay, cool. So I knew that the PS.
So that's how we talked Mum into getting it. That was an extra $50 and we could play games.
Huh. It did have that really cool box. Okay, cool, awesome.
Yeah, Yep.
So,
No, I just had to clarify that because we would have definitely gotten some comments.
because the PS3 played Blu-rays. That's how
Yes.
old I am.
That's how old we
That's
are.
disgusting. That's ugh. I don't recommend this whole aging thing that humans do. So I'm gonna try and look at some ways around it. That's one of my next side endeavors. So I'll let you know how that goes. Some development details for this fun game. Back in a time when Blu-ray or DVDs were a big deal. They don't even know about the 4K. They don't even know about 4K when DVDs are around. Oh man, poor guys. Development details continued. Ooh, wow, look at that. So FF9 was delayed to avoid simultaneous release with then rival Dragon Quest 7. Not much rivalries, guys. We've already played 9 Final Fantasies, and we've only played 1 Dragon Quest. So, but maybe we should play some Dragon Quests in the future?
Yeah, I'm always down for some of these. Oh, yeah. Some of those are getting remade, too.
Oh, yeah. Maybe we just do a whole year of just like our sideshows is just how far did we get in Dragon Quest games?
Ooh, yeah.
We just like
give ourselves until that burnout moment.
Yeah, we just play like 10 hours at a time. We see how far we get. And we just talk about, okay, that's, see, we do nice work here. We do nice work. In Canada, a production error left copies of Final Fantasy IX without an English version of the instruction manual, prompting Square to ship copies of the English manual to Canadian stores several days later. I wonder how close to launch we got it. Because I do kind of feel like I remember a very French manual going on. Square heavily promoted the game both before and after its release. Starting on March 2000, the game characters appeared in a line of computer-generated Coca-Cola commercials. Okay. Figurines of several characters were also used as prizes in Coca-Cola's marketing campaign.
Cool. I mean, I love when they used to do, like, big brand crossovers.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you'd lose your mind. You're like, Pikachu all of a sudden is just like hanging outside of a Wendy's? And you're like, yo, mom. Pikachu also eats Wendy's, so we should go to Wendy's. That.
And it worked. That's so true. It's like, this character I like is at this place. That's why, those darn Happy Meal toys, like, even the crappy ones were awesome.
Oh, just, yeah. They're like, oh, guys, look, Pikachu. Look, I need a reference. Muppet Treasure Island is at McDonald's now. We have to go there. I've never seen it.
How about the Flintstones toys?
Yeah.
You want to collect every one of these characters.
Yeah, okay. I mean, they were kind of cool. Like, the houses were pretty cute.
It was great marketing.
Yeah.
It's great marketing. Yeah. And it's like...
It still works today.
Power of...
That's it. All right.
It still works.
Okay, cool. So good job.
Timeless.
Good job, Coca-Cola, you not evil corporation. Unless you kill people on podcasts that criticize you, in which case, there was no shade thrown there. Go Coke. Love it. Big Coke Zero. It was released as a greatest hit on June 30th, 2003. A remastered version was released for Android and iOS in February 2016. The remastered featured HD movies and character models, an autosave feature, 7 different game boosters or cheats, including high speed and no encounter mode, and achievements. And then all the rest was just literally when the ports were released. So I'm not going to read that because that sounds boring. That's it for development details. Wow.
Yeah. Cool that Canada, we had some screwed up manuals. I'm like, hey, cool if we got one of those like non-English manuals.
I mean,
a little bit more rare, but I'm pretty sure we got the greatest hits.
Really? Yeah.
I couldn't tell you.
I think it's sitting on a shelf.
Like every time I think of a PlayStation game, I just imagine a green, ugly sleeve around.
I can confirm. I just got to set up this next segment, and then I'm literally going to run to my bookshelf and check. So again, we're doing detective work here. So we do a lot of that on this show. Last segment before we get into our story for today, controls. So just general controls of this game in terms of, did you have any, did it work? I mean, we could talk about what each button does, but it's an RPG. You move around a world, you go into menus, it's loading up characters. Was there any part of the controls that didn't work for you or you had issues with? I think that's probably an easier discussion point, right, for controls, because I think the game's pretty fluid, kind of works. But was there a single point in the game where you're like, oh, I didn't like the controls, or the controls held back this experience?
Yeah, no, I think controls are solid in this game. There's not a whole lot holding this game back. Square Enix or Squaresoft, whoever made this at that point in time, where they were named at that point in time, did a great job. Like this game, even on the multiple ports nowadays, I remember even buying this, I think, on my iPhone back when I had one a long, long time ago, just because it was like, it's nice to have a Final Fantasy game, just for like if you're stuck on a plane or whatever, you can play some Final Fantasy. So I didn't have any issues with the controls or anything, even selecting the menus and everything, or re-equipping different APs. Like everything was laid out really correctly, really easily. Felt like there wasn't any added bulk or anything. It seemed like just a very streamlined, good experience where even if and it was hard to even miss things because of the little exclamation point above your head. Such an easy little thing where you don't have to just run around mashing A.
Sure,
you just kind of look for that little thing that's sitting up there.
It's the blinking object in Resident Evil. One of the greatest game mechanics is just indicate that you can pick up something, right? Like it just helps because everything becomes blocky and smudgy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and super clean, very streamlined. I think. I did you have any issues?
I honestly no. Part of when I discuss that, I'm like, I feel like the controls just kind of work. The only thing I have issue when I start this game is Final Fantasy has to have a blue menu. So I have to go into the menu system as soon as possible, go to configuration, go to screen color, and change the gray to blue. And other than that, it works. And it looks like a Final Fantasy game. Otherwise, the gray menu, it makes me remind me of Final Fantasy VIII, and I don't want that. So I want to remember of Cloud and the good times, not all the squalls. So
that's true. That's true. Anytime that we can forget Final Fantasy VIII or throw shade towards that game, we will continue to do so from now to eternity because we had to traumatize ourselves by getting through it. So yeah. But
all in all, this game is very fluid. It works quite well. It's maybe there's 5 screens that you're running, and you run into a room and then you kind of run out because you kind of have to wait for the screen to load. If you just keep holding forward, it runs you back. But I don't even know if that happens in this game. They might have that fixed, to be honest with you. So I know the animations, the battles seem to load a little bit, but that's kind of more of a function of gameplay and less about controls, right?
Yeah, and I mean maybe old programming architecture of just how apparently it has to load assets really weird or jank-wise or whatever, because it's but man, lots of CGI and everything. Actually, when it comes to controls, the chocobos in the open world really I don't know, it's very cool.
Okay,
what they do with that. Maybe I think we get into it a little bit later. But I loved the implementation of the different chocobos as you upgrade things and you do certain side quests.
Cool. I did know side quests. I didn't know that there was chocobos in this game. So,
Oh, well, there you go.
There you go. An update on the Canada. Yep. We have a black disc or a black jacket, and inside we have the French-only manual. So there you go.
Wow. We got that around release.
So this is a release version, version 1. It has been used, but it is for sale. Just check me out on eBay. There you go. Cool.
Yeah.
Even got a little français on the back. That's funny. Cool. Awesome. So with that, guys, that means we're into story recap. So I'm going to kind of read through 4 big giant paragraphs. And if there's talking points, maybe after these little things, we can mention something, or we can just keep going. Cool. So we're going to go all the way back. So let's go back to the beginning where the planet, or when a planet is formed. A life-giving crystal may lay within it. The crystal creates a circle of life where the planet's life force gives life to the planet, or people, I guess, gives them souls. And when people die, they return to the planet's life force. On a planet named Terra, there is a disease or cataclysm that causes the planet's crystal to die out. The citizens place their minds into a big head wall and create an android named Garland to search space for a planet to absorb and restore their power. After years, maybe thousands, they discover a planet, Gaia, and try to absorb it. Something goes wrong, and Terra is transported into the core of Gaia. All right. Garland
plants a Life tree to expel some of the dying Terrans as mist on the surface. The mist creates monsters and turns the once peaceful surface into a troubled land. The danger of the mist causes the people to move on to the plateaus above the mist, as well as gives them air travel powered by the mist. Any talking points there? I did a pretty good job of flipping all the words because I had it completely backwards. So good job, me.
You did. Yeah, so very neat. Kind of like everything revolves around crystals in the Final Fantasy world. So it's very neat that this is these crystals actually give like the birth of life, and like in it. So if it was Final Fantasy 7, like the life force would be all that, like there'd be a crystal at the center of all that life force. And it's neat that it's like the souls, whenever they die, they would go to this crystal, and then Garland, who's cruising around in a spaceship, because of course this is a spaceship, he like goes down and tries to colonize in a way, and like inject those souls back onto like into take over the planet. It's really weird. Like it's a very out there story.
So I think what he's trying to do is he forcefully, so rather than, I don't know if he can check, he tries to forcefully take his planet's life crystal and like merge it with Gaia, and Gaia is too strong, so Terra gets absorbed. So now he's like, okay, well, I kind of have to kill everyone on this planet to take over the surface now, right? I can't just no longer power up my planet. My planet's now inside of this planet, right? So yeah, it is kind of he's just an android. Yeah. He's kind of like figuring stuff out, right? It's almost like you can tell he almost doesn't have a plan, right? It gives lore and builds to this world, but you're kind of like, okay, cool.
Yeah, and it's like, so correct me if I'm wrong. Are the Mist not the former Gaia people's souls that get replaced with the Terrans or the Terra souls?
It's like the creature that lives under the tree takes the life force and creates mist. So I think it's like the planet's, Gaia's planet. It's energy.
Okay.
Yeah. Because Terra was kind of dead, right? They didn't have that many souls. All their souls are like stuck in their like head wall thing.
Right. Yeah. But I thought that he was trying to inject them somehow, because for some reason I had in my head that the mist was people's souls. Yeah,
it's
and like
Gaian's life force and like souls from Gaia. So rather than like becoming people, sometimes they become mist.
Yeah. Essentially, Garland's messing with the rebirth cycle
of this planet. Yeah.
Of this planet, and trying to use his planet to take over. It's very like the villain taking over a planet, but in a completely original way. I've never heard of a story like this before, and I definitely did not get it the first time.
Yes. No, not at all, right? So that's why I was like, okay, we'll talk about those, outline those kind of points at the beginning. So we haven't started the game. We still got 2 more sentences. So Garland was frustrated by the lack of progress and created Cujo to infiltrate and have the humans kill each other through war. He brainwashed... No, this part I think is where I kind of screwed up. Through war, so he actually at one point...
You could say manipulated the Queen of Alexandria, right?
No, how does this work? So he is born, he's supposed to be this perfect vessel, Cujo, right? But he can't use trance. So after all this training, he can't go trance. So Garland's like, you'll never be powerful enough to take over everything, right? So he creates Zidane. Zidane is this perfect creature now. He can grow up to have the same powers as Cujo, plus use trance, making him actually more powerful. Cujo, being jealous, throws Zidane from the spaceship onto the like Gaian world to be picked up by Tantalus. Meanwhile, Cujo's expelled at this point and travels around Gaia just kind of as a lost soul. He finds Madame Sari, the summoner village, tells Garland about it. They then trying to infiltrate to take over and like capture some summons. They're unsuccessful, and this leads to Cujo discovering that there's 4 summoning crystals that they need for this like ultimate summon, and he then has to like get them from around, and they're in each kingdom, and Aiko has one. And that's why he starts the war between the 3 civilizations, so that Queen Brahm will like destroy the Burmesian city tree to get their crystal. That's what he's after.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And he is all because as well as not being able to go into trance, he's not immortal.
Uh-huh.
Like he doesn't, his soul won't get reborn. He just dies, and it's kind of like really triggering him because Zidane can, I think, be reborn or whatever. So it's like it's interesting. It's like this guy who's dealing with his own mortality is kind of making this last gasp of going against even his own people. So he's playing like all the sides. So it's interesting. I didn't really like. I guess until you kind of know Cujo's motivations, which I don't think it does. The game kind of does not a great job of
No, not at all.
fleshing out. And that's kind of might be a bit of a weakness because like once you know the backstory, you're like, okay, he is kind of very of a cool villain. But until you kind of figure that out, you're like,
oh,
okay,
like I said,
he's just like
listening to us talk about it is going to be kind of more of a fulfilling experience because you're then going to be able to go back and address the text and be like, oh, I see. Okay, I understand kind of what's going on and what's the point. And, you know, like moments like when Eco flies off the ship and she touches Garnet and like their crystals touch and they summon Alexander. Oh, okay, because they're summoning crystals. Cool. I was like, I didn't pick up on that through the story. Okay, awesome. From there, though, I think now we're ready to start the game. So that takes us back to Disc 1. That's just backstory before we even get to Disc 1. So King Sid plans to help Princess Garnet escape from her mother on her 16th birthday. During a stage performance, a group of thieves with the princess, or a prince of thieves escape with the princess, crash into a forest, fight through an ice cave, stop a mage delivery, and gather in Lindblom. After a beast hunt, a soldier comes for aid, and our party breaks up. Zidane travels to Burmecia and is defeated by Queen Brahm's army, while Garnet returns to her mother to talk some sense into her. Remember Disc 1 all those months ago when we played it?
Yep. You know, kind of sets up that whole little world, but yeah, Disc 1, it's charming.
It's good. Yeah, it's a fun start. It does make it kind of first kind of, I don't know, introduction to this greater world, as it were, right? So it's definitely one of those. Oh, it's fun. It's easy. It's kind of quick. It feels very, very quick. If anything, I would say that's like the fastest part of this game. And you're like, holy smokes, we're already on disc 2. Let's going. This one, it's a little bit longer. 2 and 3 is definitely where all the kind of the meat and potatoes hangs out. So Princess Garnet returns to Alexandria and is captured. Zidane's party revives and sees an attack and the destruction of an ancient Burmesian city. This is where Queen Brahm gets the first of the summoning crystals. They teleport back to Alexandria, rescue the princess that has her Edelions, which are summons, taken out of her now that she is 16. Steiner remains to defend the princess, while Zidane and Garnet escape back to Lindblom to see it being attacked. The party now goes after Cujo on the North Continent. They travel through Fossil Rue, meet some dwarves, meet some black mages, meet some summoner girl, save her from being kidnapped by a bounty hunter before making their way to the Life Tree. At the roots of the tree, they defeat the mist-making monster, only to witness Cujo kill Queen Brahm.
Yes. The classic injection of the real villain, because, you know, this one's really much like about Queen Brahm, and now, you know, and at Disc 2, Queen Brahm's dead. Cujo, we've been chasing Cujo around, and we definitely know that he's the big player in this game that we actually need to deal with. So I think it does a pretty good job here, where kind of keeps exploring the world, gives us introduction of all the summoners. Like this is where the lore dump really starts happening.
Yes.
And I think it's fun. Keeps like we said this earlier on, like the pacing of this game is so like breakneck that you don't feel like you're ever slogging through the massive open spaces of Final Fantasy VII to get to the next location. It seems like you're almost instantaneously always at the next location.
Yeah, but like at this point, I just feel like the world isn't as realized in Final Fantasy IX, right? That there's, 3-4 continents. I know about our main continent that has the Trinos and Alexandria and the Lindbloms, right? Like that one I kind of have a grasp on, but the North Continent seems like mysterious, but kind of quick and vague. And then there's this ice continent that has a temple, and the other one, literally don't know anything about it, right? It just doesn't leave a lasting impact. Whereas I find the Final Fantasy VII story, you meander around the world, but it's pretty linear, right? Like you make a very kind of conceited story-based path through the world. You kind of learn about all the little people and all the plights of the planet. And it's kind of more of a bigger story, whereas this one just always seems very focused on. It's kind of like the Game of Thrones effect. It's this giant war, this big undertaking, all these events, and they all just kind of revolve around like 7 characters.
Yeah, yeah. And there's something to be said about that slower pace where you can really drink in the environment of or you can really enjoy the environment of everywhere you go, or of every city or every dungeon, to a point where you can really get a different vibe for each. A lot of these places do kind of blur together because you're so quick done, on to the next spot, quick done, on to the next spot. Like, yeah, there's lots of places to kind of explore, but it doesn't encourage you to waste more time. It's like, I feel like we spent more time, so in Final Fantasy VII, when you're, in the slums trying to rescue Tifa, that chunk of the game feels way longer to me than almost
Disc 1?
Yeah. Or like any section of Final Fantasy IX. Yeah. It just feels
now, granted, some of that is a space concern, right? On these discs, why does it seem smaller, a bit more compressed? Well, they had a lot more impressive FMVs, which took up a lot more space, right? They rely a lot more on that kind of stuff and the visuals, rather than kind of giving us more of this fleshed out. And that's probably why the world seems a bit more condensed. They try to do more visually, and I think it just shows from a technology standpoint, as well as why isn't there a big massive army? Well, it's like the Dungeons and Dragons effect. You are the main characters, your party is, everything does happen to you, right? Events don't really kind of take place outside of your sphere of kind of what you can see. And that's just sort of fantasy stories, right? So
yes, and if there's an important person in this world, they will actually cross paths with you for sure.
That's just kind of how it works, right? So on to Disc 3, guys. That was our last episode. We're up to that one. Then we're on to Disc 4, so we got like a couple points, and then we're kind of, oh boy, we're almost done. So Disc 3. So Princess Scarlet is being crowned queen after her mother's death. The party goes to Trino to learn about Eiko's summoning powers, play cards, and have to rush back to Alexandria because Cujo is currently attacking the city. Garland casts Cujo aside for being a failure. With all 3 kingdoms in ruin, Zidane revisits the Black Mages, find out about a secret desert palace. Zidane is tasked at getting some magic plates to discover where the 4 planet crystals are. After getting the plates, the other half escape prison, leading to both parties meeting up and chasing Cujo into an old temple to rescue a kidnapped Eiko. We travel to an upside-down castle where I don't know what we find. In the last notes, I claimed that we got plates. But we go to the upside down castle, and maybe, I don't know, there's something about plates in these 2 places we go. I don't know what the difference is or what we're supposed to achieve in either area. So, and I look it up.
Yeah. And I can't really remember either, because essentially, like, we break up all the party members into pairs.
We haven't even got to that point yet. That's the next point. Yeah, right?
Okay.
Yeah, no, we go, half our party goes to like some palace for Cujo, and then the other people are in Cujo's palace, and then we go to upside down temple, and then we break into groups, but I don't know why. Yeah, I think one time it's like to find Sid's wife, maybe. Yeah.
I think you're
Something
right.
like that.
There's some like you visit some gnomes at one point.
Yeah, okay, all right. So, but we found Sid's wife through this, and some plates. That's important. And now a man, he makes a better ship. While we travel to 4 separate shrines to create a portal to Garland's planet, Terra, there they discover that Zidane is a clone before confronting Garland in his castle. After defeating him in battle, Cujo shows up, kills him, and destroys Terra. End of Disc 3.
Yes. Quite a sad ending for Terra. Yep. But Cujo's kind of losing it at this point. He's gone the whole like evil Sephiroth's stage. He's crazy Sephiroth and murdering everybody, ramped up to 11. I do like lots of cutscenes at this point. So I never say no to some of these cutscenes. And this game is filled with
they are lovely. They're beautiful, right? They're
And I do kind of forgive a little bit of the loading screens because it's like, you're trying so hard.
You're just such a kind, caring person. So cool. Yeah, and I agree. Like they are beautiful. They're rendered well. The remastered kind of blows everything out. It looks beautiful in HD. Right, they're up on the big screen. You're like, oh wow, cool. So it is art style, very beautiful, and it's just it's a function of the game, right? It's technologically, it's everything I wanted in a Final Fantasy, from visuals to sound to story to the elements to conceptually wise, right? They kind of just created like their perfect iteration of what they were going for when they first made the game way back in 1986 or 7 or whenever that was, right? So it's just that very nice retelling, recapture. It's nice to have someone tell you a story. Back in the day, we used to have these like older kids on the playground that would tell you a story, video games. You'd be like, wow. Now there's kids on the internet that just do the same thing. So watch one of those videos, then grab this, and you're going to be like, cool, awesome. I understand these characters a little bit better. So, I mean, or listen to our podcast. Yeah. I'm sure me awkwardly reading through like a Wikipedia page on some of these characters at the end of the podcast that I seem kind of uninterested in is also as good.
It's always as good because we're explaining it. But no, like Final Fantasy 9, I think, no spoilers at this point because I've been saying it. I really enjoy this game. I think it's pretty cohesive. I'm not sure if it's still the most popular, like the highest reviewed Final Fantasy game, but I know it's like the series creator and the composer's favorite. There's something to it. It's got a lot of like magic. It may be spread a little like. Same thing with kind of happened with Wind Waker. Like, fun game, great. It's so close to being perfect level, but it's missing just that little bit of extra either length or content or just that special magic. So, I really enjoy this game, and I'm excited to see how we wrap this.
Wow, look at Segway Jones go. All right, so like Tyson said, we're starting Disc 4, guys. All of our cool points. So we start out in Black Mage Village. Now, that Terra has been destroyed. We're like, oh no. Our party settles a few of the Zidane clones in the village as our party makes final preparations to go after Kujo. Are we ready?
Absolutely.
Cool. I was just like, yeah, I'm good. There's obviously lots more to do in this game, and it's not just the end. Okay. So I just kept going, and I was like, that's the end. Awesome, great, cool. So we head to Memoria. Once you're ready to set out in your newly acquired ship from Garland, you make for the Lifa Tree, where Kujo has opened a portal through time. There appears to be a great number of foes to fend off, but luckily Cid, Beatrix, maybe others, I don't know, show up to help out in their own airships. Inside the portal, we find ourselves in a memory castle. We have to play through rooms that display themes based on our adventures, plus our characters' own unique backstories. There are ghosts to play cards against, and you can lose all your best cards, then you're like, well, never playing this file again. Stupid. And you fight the 4 fiends from the Crystal Temples earlier in the game. Ooh, Memoria. Pretty exciting.
Yes, we always need a boss rush. Lots of... I think there's even like there's a weird side quest where you can run back to Alexandria or where they're doing repairs, and like if you literally run after every boss, you run back, like another character's like gone and there's more unique dialogue. I forget what you get from it, but it's like,
excuse me,
you ever want to just spend like an extra 5-10 hours just finishing up a side quest? This game's gotcha.
Nice.
So maybe that's a sign of the side quest summaries when we get to it.
I didn't go 2 balls to the wall because I was like, oh my gosh, there's just so much. Let's just touch on some of it, just like we're doing with the rest of the game. On to the Crystal World, guys. So we get through the 4 fiends. We're at the end of the temple. At the end of the final dungeon, we come face to face with Kujo in transform. We must defeat him in a battle to stop him from destroying the crystal that created the universe. As a kid, I remember I got this far, and I did beat him. And I also beat him this time. So I was pretty excited. But I think he does that thing where he, like, kind of, like, kills us at the end, and we're all, like, almost dead. And you're like, cool. Well, at least it's the end of the game. Psych, it's not. Because after this battle, a demon descends from the sky. It might be the actual, like, devil or something. I think that's, like, the lore. It's supposed to be, like, he wanted Kujo to win, because then he destroyed everything, and he'd, like, ultimately win, and God would lose. And now he showed up because he's like, I must win. And as a kid, I couldn't beat him. And this is where I quit. And I never ever beat this game till this playthrough. So pretty exciting. And we did defeat Death. Game over.
Yes, yes. Necron is his name, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Having two healers at this point in the game, it's like harkens back to our playthroughs at Final Fantasy 1, where having two healers doesn't seem like a bad idea sometimes. Yeah, so it was fun. I mean, we always like to have multi bosses. You can't just have one final boss. Like, did we really think that just finishing Kujo's transform was going to be it? It's like, no, there's always one more.
Yeah, you can't
boss.
just beat the Sephiroth at the end of the game. It has to be apparently, Necron. Like I said, apparently area is called the Hill of Despair and represents death itself. Necron's ultimate goal is to reduce everything to nothingness. Its appearance is somewhat of a mystery, and it arrives unexpectedly at the end of the game, and its character is never fully explained. So, cool. Just kind of like an end. Final Fantasy, sometimes kings show up that wear nails, and they're actually spiders, and they spread the rumor through time the whole time.
Yes, and space. And space.
And
don't forget,
space.
and
Space Ghost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's Ghost, there's Space Ghost.
Everyone.
From coast to coast.
Cool. So that is the game. I can give you my honest reaction from when I played it as a kid. I remember grinding. I obviously didn't have the best strategy. I just kind of dummied my way, was able to beat Kujo. Had I used maybe some items, like I bet you I had some elixirs I could have used on my party at some point and just timed it out and played through a couple times and had a chance of actually beating Necron. But I think it was one of those things where because Kujo's tough. Kujo beats you down, and rather than do the thing where like you get fully buffed up, you go into the next battle and maybe you have some down characters. And I think it was one of those things like just never never came back. And my strategy was kind of like a depleted strategy, right? So use all my magic, use all my items, use all my big spells on Kujo, not knowing that I had to like have something in reserve for this end boss. So knowing that now, knowing that going forward, having modifications, it makes for a pretty simple ending. And that's it. You end the game. Are you ready to say goodbye and listen to the ending?
Yeah. I think we've spent enough time in this world, in this crazy upside down world inside of a world, space time traveling crystal, enjoy it, and soul turning into monsters, kind of fun time.
And Space Ghost.
Final Fantasy.
And Space Ghost. All right, and the ending. So the party is able to travel back to Terra to witness the destruction of the Life of Tree. Zidane senses Kujo is still alive, and he rescued the party from the void we were just in. Going against better judgment, Zidane makes off to save Kujo, and the scene ends with Zidane and Kujo sitting inside the destruction of the Great Tree. Years later, we see our party traveling to Alexandria to view a performance of Pardon My Canary. Vivi is dead. Ooh, that was kind of fast. Just dropped that one, eh? But he had a bunch of kids. Eiko is now Sid and Helga's kid. Quina is the head chef at the palace. Steiner has a thing for Beatrix. Freya is with her love, and I think he recovered his memories, maybe. And at the end of the performance, the main character reveals himself to be Zidane all along. And a love-struck Garnet runs to him and embraces as our story comes to an end.
Yes. Sad about Vivi, but that was kind of his story, as he always knew that he was a weapon with an expiry date.
Oh yeah, it's kind of like the bittersweet part. You don't get the nice parts of that story, which is too bad, right? But yeah, no,
you don't get the Red 13 at 1,000 years later, whatever, and him running through with his kids. You don't get that. So.
Yeah, that's not what you get, right? So, pretty fun ending. We know. I don't think there is an alternate ending. I didn't look into that. You ever look at what the alternate ending for this game is?
No, there's an alternate ending.
Yeah, I think so. FF9 alt ending. I don't know why I didn't look this up. Alternate ending. What happens as far as I know from there? Seeing as you get a hammer. The hammer. You get Cena's hammer? Okay. Uh,
Okay.
okay,
I know that.
sure. Apparently, it's nothing. It's like an extra part. It adds nothing to it. So yeah, there you go. That ends our story. Kind of neat, complete. Yeah, sure. It has to be a happy ending, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, most Final Fantasy games usually end up
Yeah.
happy. Characters die along the way, but usually it ends up.
I don't know how
alright.
Final Fantasy VIII ends. I should, but I don't. Final Fantasy
I couldn't care
Seven
less.
was ambiguous. Like you beat Cujo, and I think everyone was like kind of happy.
It had 13 running at the end. You know it was okay. The dog survived, or the cat survived.
Oh, that's
dog
right.
Cat.
Cloud becomes emo in the next game. Okay, perfect, awesome. Yeah, so that kind of adds that review of the game. All in all, it's good. It's classic. It's clean. It's crisp. It's a Final Fantasy. It is the most quintessential Final Fantasy. If you played Final Fantasies 1 through 9, you get to 9 and you'd be like, wow, they really tied it up together in the end, and they just kind of gave me a little bit of everything, right? It's a little slice of all that is Final Fantasy. Yeah, it moved away from kind of the more futuristic steampunk, right, that we kind of got in the 7 and the 8s. It didn't seem as punk rock. That probably did hurt its sales a little bit. People were looking a little more edgy, a little bit less fantasy. But, I mean, in the world today where all fantasy is accepted, right? It doesn't have to be punk rock. It can be soft fantasy. It can be kind of goofy fantasy, right? We're kind of a bit more accepting of those things now. So I think maybe in a world where we have just such an abundance of material, be able to know that there's this nice classic old RPG that looks clean. It looks okay. Like if you're a graphics guy, you can play this and have fun, right? It's pretty easy to follow. It's not overly complicated. Modifications definitely help it out. I would recommend anyone that's interested in checking out an old Final Fantasy game, old RPG, especially like an old PlayStation 1, like we're going that far back, like that's old to you. You don't even think about the Super Nintendo, you just think about the PlayStation 1. Oh boy. Oh, we didn't even know what DVDs were back when the PS1 was, guys. That's how sad thing. Well, maybe we did. They were just really expensive. Anyways, it's nice, it's clean, it's a good experience. I would recommend this game. Is it the best? No, I think Final Fantasy VII's just better. It just means more to me, right? So,
Yeah, definitely different aesthetic. This is the very cutesy fantasy, not such a dark world, but has enough of the tropes and calls that it feels like a very, like the prototypical Final Fantasy adventure. Seems like it was almost, I forget if one of the creators said it or something, but it was like kind of like their, the ideal Final Fantasy. And I appreciate it. It's got all the crazy. The Garland even shows up. Like, I mean, the boss from the first game sure does, or at least a character named that. So it's like it's got all those little cliches. It's it's sword based, not some stupid gun sword that makes no sense because it's dumb. It's got some pretty timeless characters. I think they're not as timeless as Final Fantasy VII, and like the character designs just aren't as like like I can draw every Final Fantasy VII character in my mind. I would there'd be details of like character designs in Final Fantasy IX. They're like, wait, what does their jacket look like again, or whatever. Sure. So it's like, it's almost perfect. I would say it's like definitely top 3 Final Fantasy games for me.
yeah.
Ooh. At least the ones that we've played. So,
All right.
yeah, I'm thinking it's top 3.
Okay, cool. We're going to play a fun game after this. Wait. We'll just, yeah, okay, we'll get to that. Hold that point. That's a very good thought. Now we'll talk about it next. We're on it.
Side quest?
Now let's do callbacks to other Final Fantasies. So right now, I guess we can just look at all the Final Fantasy games. It's Final Fantasy Retrospective. Let's do that and then look at, no. Or do we want to do side quests first?
It doesn't matter. We'll just do callbacks. Like, might as well rattle through them real quick.
Sure. Yeah. So just like I said, it's kind of an illusion. It calls back to all the other games. These are just rudimentary ones. Tyson, if you have a better one, let's mention it. And if some of you are like, I don't think you played that game. I haven't. You're right. Wow, okay. Final Fantasy 1. So the 4 Guardian Fiends and the general design of the characters. So the sprites way back, like I said, in 1986 or 7, whenever that first Final Fantasy game was created, these guys are just basically the rendered 3D version that were created 13 years later. So the name looks just like the Thief. It's adorable. It's delightful. They're great.
VV is exactly a black mage.
Exactly. It looks just like it, right? So
yeah,
kind of fun to see that fan favorite character come back in nice 3D Final Fantasy 2, I haven't played it, but I do know famously at the start of the game you do lose against some Imperial soldiers. And again, Disc 1 ends with you having a forced narrative battle loss to Beatrix. Like, she just kind of destroys your team. So that kind of always reminds me of Final Fantasy 2, the first time playing through that, and you lose right at the beginning, and you're like, ooh, that's different. I don't know, you could lose as part of the story, right? So...
Yeah, and the game doesn't end? Interesting.
Yeah.
For sure. I don't remember too much else of Final Fantasy 2 eitherwards.
Yeah. Final Fantasy 3, saving the 4 crystals of the world. That is a big theme of that game. And I don't think I've played 3. I think there's something about Onion Knights.
Yeah, I got some gaps there
Yeah,
too.
okay, cool. How about number 4? At least the dwarfs. But I think they also have 4 crystals, and they definitely probably also have fiends. And I think the fiends in Final Fantasy 4 actually look just like the fiends in this game, right? Where like the earth fiend or whatever, or the water fiend is just like the king. The dark king from Final Fantasy 4 is like the water fiend in Final Fantasy 9.
Yeah, those character designs look familiar. As well as like, did Final Fantasy 4 introduce airships?
It didn't.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, like maybe.
There might have been.
I can't remember.
There might have been airships in like 1 though.
Yeah, where it's like Final Fantasy 4 starts out on an airship.
But I think
This game starts.
But
out
I think
on
an airship exists in 1. You have to get like a Bahamut tail or something. And you go to the desert. It's been a while.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I think it's been way
Princess
too long.
or Final Fantasy 5. The princess, castles, dragons. In my mind, there's like a princess and a
plays.
plays.
Plays are a big part of Final Fantasy 5. There's that like musical part or whatever.
That's 6.
6. Oh, shit.
Yeah, I know. I also don't know anything about Final Fantasy 5. Final Fantasy 6, though, there is a play. Yeah, you're right. There's an opera part. Opera house. That's a big part of that, right? You got to play as Rosa in the opera house. Can't forget that. An alternate dimension where we travel to, and the Edelions are a separate race. Mm-hmm. But that also might happen in like Final Fantasy 4.
Yes. There's lots of these tropes that are spread across multiple of them. But it's like, it's kind of interesting to see kind of which one kind of got started where.
Oh, certainly. Yeah.
And I mean, I think kind of like the second in command or like the secret advisor is actually the true villain kind of thing. Like with, yeah.
Okay. And an alternate Final Fantasy 7. So the sexy design of the long-haired villain.
Yep, and big swords. Except for I don't think Kuja uses the sword.
Blonde protagonist that has amnesia. Okay.
Brunette love interest.
Yeah. Okay. How about the Final Fantasy 8? The time travel at the end, because Kuja travels back to the beginning and sees a crystal, and there was time travel, I think, in Final Fantasy 8.
There was, or at least there was like
they went back
extended flashback.
They went back to when they were kids or something. And then I said...
And they realized that the villain was actually, like, looking after them.
And then I said Garnet's boob size. Because Tifa's kind of got, like, the brunette with the long hair with the big boobs. And then Renea from Final Fantasy VIII doesn't have the big boobs. And then Garnet doesn't have the big boobs. So, follow the boobs.
Yes. Apparently, the trend was to go more realistic. I don't know. Maybe they caught a lot of flack for Tifa's design. I'm not sure.
We would never have that many boobs in games. They don't have boob physics yet. If we did, though, beach volleyball. That's what we'd be working on. So there you go. Cool. So that kind of call back to other Final Fantasies. Ranking Final Fantasies. 1, 2. Yeah, I mean, this is definitely a top 3 for me.
Yeah.
7. Is it better than 6? I think it's better than 6, but I don't think I like it as much as 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's how I would do that. So.
Yeah, for me, geez, I love 7, and actually, I think after this, I might go play some 7. So I think I might lean 7's my number 1. 4 is my number 2, but I love 4. 4 could easily be number 1 on any given day. But I'm just feeling some Final Fantasy 7 today.
Okay.
So I'm like, those two interchangeable. And then 3, I think it's 9. And then 4 is 6.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm sure that's blasphemy to some people, but it's like...
Well, you just didn't really like the characters in 6. Like, that always got you, right? And the same way I feel about 4. I'm just like, I've played it so goddamn much that I just don't want to be in any of the
Yeah.
towers ever again. Like, I'm just done with those parts of the game,
That's
right?
fair.
So,
Yeah.
so similar reasons for that. Cool. But back to Final Fantasy IX that we kind of like touched on, quickly talked about our rankings, I guess, of Final Fantasy, which might change day to day depending on how you talk to us. Side quests of Final Fantasy IX. Let's look at that. A list quick. Got a couple characters, and then I think we got to do a review of our character draft, and then maybe would we redraft? Yeah, let's go through that. So side quest. So there is. I just wrote down a couple. If there's more, we can discuss them during, afterwards. I don't know. So there's a Stelizo quest. So you have to collect a bunch of zodiac signs to get an alternate ending.
Oh, there's the alternate
Yep.
ending.
Yeah, I knew I wrote in the notes. I was just like, I don't know what it is. I should look it up, and I forgot. There are also 9 land spirits to hunt and collect. The reward, I'm not sure. There are 3 coffees that you can collect, and you gain a Prima Vista figurine.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Nothing like going through a bunch of work for a figurine in a game.
You can get a skipping game, or if you can get to 1,000, they call you a skipping master.
You know, worth
Yeah,
it.
I think so. Frog collecting mini game. So I think there's like a special rare frog or something. And if you get to 100 of them, Queen's master will come out, and you can get his best weapon. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah.
Yep. Especially if you like. Oh, but don't forget, there's also all the blue magic that you can spend countless hours
Trying to power up poor little
Trying to-
Queena. Yeah, he's.
Yeah, gotta nurse. Gotta like nothing like using blue mages. Ugh.
Yeah.
Yuck.
Yeah. Excalibur 1. So you have to get something called the something finger at the Trino auction house as soon as you get to Trino the very first time. And then you trade it to an old man in Dargello. Okay.
Yeah, and that's like Steiner's second best weapon
Yes.
in the game.
Yeah, because the best weapon of the game is Excalibur 2, and the only way to get that is you have to get to the end of the Memory Castle after you fight the Earth Fiend in 12 hours.
Which is ridiculous. Basically means no side questing. Run. There's actually guides online on what steps to take.
Yes.
Is the shortest. Like press up this many times, then left this many times. It's like, oh my goodness, people are like, the right pathing has been mapped out to try to get this weapon, which is like, do I really care? Is Steiner actually going to be in my party? Probably not.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, he's probably not. So that just seems like a pain in the ass. Any of the side quests you wanted to touch on? Because obviously you had a couple that you deemed important, or you done, or...
yeah, well, I didn't finish them, but I thought it was a very cool thing, and then I like looked it up, and I was like, oh, those are neat mechanics. So there's like these chocobo hot and cold locations.
Okay.
So if you get a chocobo, there's like a certain place on the map will be like a little grotto, and you can play a mini game where you're trying to find these chocographs, and essentially it's a place on the map, like the world map, where you dig with your chocobo, and then you get a certain unlock. I think there's like 4 upgrades. Like you're just a regular old chocobo, and then it can run. You get the next upgrade, and that can run on water. And then the next upgrade, it can all of a sudden like run over mountains. And then the next upgrade is it can take off from, like, it can fly. So there's all these different like little chocobo upgrades. It is. Do you like running around in a circle pressing AX a bunch to try to find that right pixel to get maybe the right thing?
I just can't imagine that's a thing I'm going to do at this point in my life. So
no, it's that's kind of the theme with a lot of these things. Like another one's the ragtime mouse. So there's a quiz person that you can run into and answer it all. There's a bunch of these friendly monsters where if they'll ask you like, oh, I want this item, and you throw this, and they'll give you a ring and experience. It is some of the most painful grinding. I do not recommend almost any of these side quests. Just play the game, skip the side quests unless you're super hardcore about it. And even the playing Terra Master or whatever it is, it's like I don't like the card game.
Yeah.
I don't like Queena and the blue magic and the hunting frogs. I don't want to run around trying to find friendly monsters and having the right weapon or the right item to throw it to them so I can literally just get gold or some BS. And I don't want to have to run around doing a quiz show, and I don't want to have to it's like, it's just filler. It's like, why is this here when we could have used this to flush out the
Yeah,
story.
it does seem like they found the perfect sweet spot of side quests in like a Final Fantasy VII, where these character upgrades, you kind of have to do them to get your characters to like do different magic spells and different combos. Whereas this comes because it comes from armor. It just seems like the armor rewards aren't as great, and synthesis is almost more important, and that requires grinding. So they've just taken that inflatable cap, like think way back to Castlevania 2, guys, right? The reason you have to buy all these weapons and hearts become ammo, they went from ammo to currency, so you play the game a lot longer. So you have to grind out 100 hearts and go back to town to buy the sword so you can keep going through the forest. Well, it just takes longer than just going through the forest, right? So they've just kind of like reverted back to like almost kind of like an old gross way of making video games and side quests with this, unfortunately, rather than making character upgrades kind of the reward, right? They kind of just were like, no, grinding's fun.
Yeah. Well, and I guess like even a modern take is like with Mass Effect, you don't necessarily need to do all the like the character everybody will have like some of the characters of like a character mission. So if you want to like learn more about them, it's mostly like they'll be in your party and you'll get a little bit of a backstory. It's like that'd be good side questing. I think if we incorporated that, so we could kind of like learn more about like what Amaranth's all about,
Sure.
and maybe like we could have a side quest where we actually do get the memories back with Freya's lover. It's like there'd be some good like character beats or whatever, but it's run around and mash A.
I mean, again, they were a bit of a time constraint, right? Things were kind of pushed, cramped. Is there a chance that lots of those nuanced things, they didn't have as much time to develop and work on those things as they should have? Probably. And that's probably what you're missing, right? Is that heart and soul. But with that, I think we just have a character study and talk about our draft from like way, way back before we started this project. And then we're out of here. Definitive experience. Yeah. I don't think we missed anything. I think we kind of touched. We were pretty thorough. Good stuff. We even found the French-Canadian original release of the game on a shelf. So, fun stuff.
Yeah.
Cool.
Hey.
Character. I just know a lot about video game history from doing this show. It's a weird thing. I mentioned that the other day. I was like, oh, that year happened. I know that this happened because of this, because of video games. And I was like, that's what I've done with my life. I've learned about video game history.
Yeah, and it ties into sometimes real world effects because video games
I'm like a boring old man that I was like, look at this sweet book. You know what's written in it? But instead I'm like, look at this video game. It's only in French, the instruction booklet. Isn't that fascinating? Can I play it?
Well.
No. You listen to me talk about it. That's what this is. This is no playing here. It's a listening zone.
Yeah, it's like we do not play with these games. We discuss
Can
them
I at least
and-
watch you play it before? No. After I'm done, I will talk and you listen. That's all we do. So I've created kind of like a health... Oh, I'm definitely... When I recontextualize myself as like an old man in a cave... Definitely not someone you'll meet me on a travel. That's too bad. Character study. So the top 2 characters this time. So the number 2 character off the board was Zidane. The backstory for our blonde little hero. So Garland, a robot from another planet, creates Zidane after his first creation, Cujo, fails to learn trance. Being jealous of Zidane, Cujo throws him off their spaceship. When he is discovered by a traveling group of thieves, they raise him to be a very horny, very cancelable monkey boy. He works with the group until they plan a heist of the princess from Alexandria during a performance of Pardon My Canary. The autonomy of this character is they took the blonde, blue-clad sprite from the first game and turned it into a monkey boy with a blue costume. The sprite didn't have a tail, but I think they have a brown belt. So they kind of like, what if the brown belt was a tail? Oh, cute, great. And his archetype is the thief.
Yeah, I like Zidane. He's he's very cancelable with all his handsiness. So very questionable but he's fun. He's got like some of the best movesets, some of the best. I love all those weapons, like the dual.
Oh yeah.
Dual-sided weapon ends. That was like, oh man, I think Phantom Menace probably came out around this time, so it's like, ooh, give me that Darth Maul vibes all day. I love it.
Double-bladed stuff. It's sweet. Yeah.
It's pretty dope.
No, he's a good character. I mean, I've played with him. I'm glad they made him kind of useful and didn't make him like an actual like thief and like use like rogues or something. And you're like, back attacks. Son of a bitch.
Or him be like super like fragile, looking at you, Titus.
Yeah.
Whereas it's like he doesn't even hit the hardest or have good health.
I mean, it makes sense. He is like a more powerful Cujo is the main villain. So cool. About the final, our first character, Vivi, the best guy off the board. Backstory. So during a transportation of black mages to Alexandria Castle, a mage falls off the airship and lands in a mountain cave. There, a Queen-type character recovers the mage and raises him, teaching him about the world. And after the frog grandpa dies, Vivi leaves his grandfather's house and visits Alexandria the day that a production of Part of My Canary is being performed at the castle. The anatomy of the character is blue jacket, yellow steeple hat, black face. I mean, a dark round face. He's the prototypical black mage. The 8-bit sprite from the first game come to life, and his archetype is the black mage.
Yeah, he was first off the board for a reason. I think he's everybody's kind of favorite in this game. He's so sweet, so innocent. He's just like, and he's such a loyal friend. And he goes from like kind of being timid to, by the end of the game, he's always the first one to be like, no, we're gonna go do these things. So, yeah, I think he's a very brave character. I really like him a lot. Everybody respects Vivi.
Yeah, no, he's great. He's good. There's a reason he went first off the board. And like Tyson alluded to, now we talked about all the characters. Although I definitely feel like I put a lot more love and care into the last two characters. And I guess this whole episode writing it out versus some of the other ones were just a lot of copy and pasted parts. It's kind of the nature of the of how I did things, I guess, this summer, right? So this one, a little bit more love, a little more care. We did a character draft. Way back before we started this project, while my voice is still kind of holding in, I'll be fast here. We're just going to go through. So I had the first overall pick, and I went with Vivi. After playing through the game and discussing it with you, would I change my vote? No, Vivi's the best. He's just the greatest. Yeah, he's a very difficult character, right? Dealing with just mortality, knowing that you're going to die, but still being brave in the face of it, learning to kind of help others, caring. It's great. Awesome. Love Vivi. Tyson, you had the next two picks, and you went with Zidane and then Garnet.
Yep. I think I would stick with my picks. Zidane, solid. I always want to have him in my party. He's like I think one of the strongest characters. Garnet, I always like having a summoner and plus a white mage. Wonderful. Very useful. Always good to have her. I mean, it was hilarious sometimes turning on cheats and having her just like one-shot people with her little stick. So I always found that very pleasant. I would stick with my picks.
Okay, yeah, for myself too. I almost went Garnet first, not just because she's the strongest character, because I think she has the most interesting kind of story, the most conflicted. Right, she's the Madame Sari survivor along with Eco, so she has kind of this Edelian background. She kind of has this conflicted relationship with her mother. She goes through a lot with Steiner. She becomes the queen. She does kind of get Jean Grey kind of fainty towards the end and just kind of keeps fainting. But I think she is just one of the more compelling, strong characters, right? So she was almost my number one. So yeah, I agree with that. At 4 and 5, I went with Steiner and Eco. I do believe that Steiner is also one of the top characters, right? Could he beat out Zidane just in terms of interest in character? Potentially. Zidane's kind of black and white. He's the strongest. He's kind of the main character. He's the protagonist. He's the clone of just like Cujo kind of thing, whereas Steiner has kind of a bit more conflict. He wants to do what's right and he thinks is noble, even if, and he kind of has to have his beliefs challenged a little bit. So I could see Steiner maybe being pushed up into like a third spot, depending how the picks were kind of flipped, right? So there's a chance that Tyson, you could have started with like Vivi Zidane, right? I could have thrown a curveball at you and you would have ended up kind of him. So I think he was very strong. Happy to get him in the second round. And then Eco, just in terms of the remaining cast, she does something. She has plot relevance beyond disc 1. So Eco. I think that's why the order got screwed up when we were going through everything. So I'm like, well, we can't talk about
Eco. No, see, I think you have this. I think you went Amaranth Steiner because I'm looking on Discord. Because I think
but that's what you wrote down, and I definitely remember thinking I wanted Eco, and I was fine with her at 5.
Okay, because I'm also looking at our last episode notes, which would be the order is Garnet and Amaranth.
So I went Amaranth. Okay, maybe I screwed up. Okay.
Yeah, I think you might have went Amaranth.
And you got Freya Eco.
Yeah,
okay.
And which left Quina at the very end, and it didn't make sense because we weren't going to talk about Aiko.
Until late
in the first episode because she wasn't even introduced until episode this 2 at least.
Cool.
At least I think that's.
I mean, in terms of Quina, they exist. Amaranth, you're also there. Freya, you're cool for a hot second. You kind of come in, you're badass, but then literally
disc 1 superstar, disc 2
you fall off a little bit and you're just there. Yeah.
Aiko isn't even there until like disc 2, and she doesn't really kind of like come into her own until disc 3. Which basically gives her one disc to kind of shine, because disc 4 is like the final dungeon and two boss battles. The end.
Okay.
Unless you want to waste hours on a side quest. So, like, I get it. I think the Amaranth Steiner kind of going in the 4 or 5 slot makes a lot of sense because, yeah, like, Eiko's cool, and yes, she's that she's a summoner, but her essential whole character is, I really like Zidane.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I could see that. I mean, I guess just in terms of, like, no one else does anything, she's probably, like, the best of the bottom. Plus, a summoner is, like, kind of better than like a bounty hunter class to have at the end of your party, right? So I probably would have redone that a little bit, but had I picked Amaranth, I mean, I remember loving Amaranth as a kid and like seeing him on the cover, and I was like, man, I can't wait for to get him in my party. I was so excited at the end of disc 2 when I finally got him, and then used him all the time. And he's probably terrible, but he won me over from like looking at my French. I didn't know anything about him. I didn't know his backstory. I was just like, oh, je ne suis les claws.
Yeah. He does use claws.
And
he hits like a tank. Like, I mean, Steiner's more like defensive focused. Amaranth's more offensively focused. I know either it was Amaranth or VV were in my lineup, and I like tossed between them. Do I want physical damage or magic damage? Zidane was kind of always in there. I usually had one of the 2 healers until like the last disc where I just carried both of them, and then it was like goodbye Freya and Quina. You're there.
And
I hate that you're a blue
and to
mage.
read just, I mean, we should do Amaranth some favor and just read from his character profile in the manual, the official manual I have here. So, cette valeur détermine les points d'attaque physiques.
Something about physical attack.
No, that's the description of strength attribute. So. That's pretty good. Look at this. Look at this French Canadian over here, like from La Belle Provence, knowing a little parler. Cool. Parler is just talk. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
little parler français. There we go. Nice. I just had to just French talk. Okay. Cool. Well, that's Final Fantasy IX, everyone. Did we miss anything, Tyson?
No, I mean, unless we want to ramble on about how...
I think I'm done. I think I did a good job.
Yeah.
I brought the energy. I said this game, it should be played. I think it's great. If you want to go back, old RPGs, oh baby, you better pick this guy up. In terms of like this bit, if you never played one of these before, you probably have a better experience playing this than like Final Fantasy VII. Because sometimes in Final Fantasy VII, you're like, what is this that I'm looking at? Like, what kind of a mountain castle am I in right now? It's weird.
Yeah, just like the level design.
Yeah, and the
like,
people, and you're like, why am I Lego? This game is all nice and clean, start to finish.
It is. And it's got some beautiful CGI cutscenes in there. It's a beautiful game. It's a good story. I think it could have been a little bit better done, and the side quests are a little bit meandering, but
it's okay.
Tight package. What RPG doesn't have meandering and time wasting in it? I'm just happy that there wasn't like a fishing game where you need to catch 1,000 fish.
It's like skip rope.
Happening.
You have to jump. So,
but that's easily skippable. You don't need to sit there.
All right, let's just jump to the next section. Woo! All right. Don't rope me into another one of these jokes, Tyson. I just can't take it.
There you go.
How are you going to be able to handle it?
Quit it.
Okay. All right. I think, we're done. Cool. We're back in 2 weeks. We're going to talk about Kirby 64. So, pretty exciting.
Yes. Could be times. Good times. Good times with Kirby. I mean... Yeah, I'll save my piece.
Yeah, awesome. Cool. So with that, thanks for joining us. Hopefully, I think this episode kind of works in my mind as like the definitive one. So if you are interested in kind of going back in the years later and you're like, what was Final Fantasy IX about? Hopefully our joy is kind of reflected as we're playing through this, right? It was kind of a good summer hang. Wasn't too bad. And I'm glad we got to it. So with that, we'll say goodbye and see you guys our next numbered show.